welcome everyone. My name is Scott Kezarowski. I am the pastor of River Cities Christian Church, and I have been having conversations about life and suffering with Walter and Laura Vondre. And this evening, I am having a conversation with Laura because she has really played a significant role in her husband's life, and she has really walked with him through quite a bit of the suffering that he has experienced. And so I'd love for you to be able to hear her thoughts. So thank you for joining us, Laura.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Laura, would you tell us, describe for us what it's been like to care for Walter? So like, what are some of the things that you have had to do for him?
Well, pretty much everything. It started out gradual, of course. He had diabetes that was eating at his weakness or his strengths, making him weak, making it so he can't walk really well. So we get a walker, can't go upstairs very well. So, you help going upstairs. So we ended up moving to where there was a place where was suitable for him medically.
How many years ago was that?
That was... It'll be 6.5 years.
6.5 years. Okay, so you've been caring for him for quite some time.
Yes.
It sounds like.
Okay. Yeah. And when we did first move here, he didn't realize the magnitude of what was happening with him at that time, and neither did I. He was unable to lay down and sleep. So he sat up and slept, and his legs seeped with drainage. We didn't know what was from. I changed it twice a day, sometimes more. So that first whole summer of 2016, we battled with that here. And he finally said, "That's it. You have to take me in. I'm going to die." It was to that point.
So you tried to deal with it primarily at home.
Yep, we tried to just deal with it.
You were his caregiver.
Yeah.
Like it was basically.
Yes.
You.
Yes.
Okay.
And him himself, he was caring for himself because he did take care of his own insulin and his own, and I don't think either one of us had a clue that kidneys were going to fail,
Okay.
So when we went to the hospital, they of course transferred him to Wausau. And within a week, they took, through dialysis treatments, they took at least 40 to 50 pounds of fluid off of him.
Oh, wow.
Which started the trend of having to have dialysis forever.
Okay.
Stage 4 kidney failure. And I think it's stage 5 kidney failure and heart valve failures. Right, Walter?
Yes.
Started out with dialysis. Things seemed to go pretty good for a while. I mean, you still using a walker, still needed extra care, extra help with things. I was still working a full-time job. And when it came to there was a time in there that dialysis wasn't doing well with him. And pretty much Walter fixed it himself.
Okay.
They pretty much said that it's not going to work, that dialysis is not going to work for very much longer. And Walter fixed it through medication that he's heard that people take because of low blood pressure. Low blood pressure. So he pretty much went to the heart doctor. Of course, I went with him. I went to all of his doctor's appointments and asked him if he could be on a certain medication during dialysis to keep his blood pressure up. And then that's what happened, and that's how that...
So then he was able to continue on.
Right. They said just last week that 2 to 3 years is probably like the top max for dialysis, and he's going on 6.5.
Wow.
So he's there is a reason why he's here, obviously, like
Sure.
like you have said in the past. Yeah, dialysis continuing, and then we have to check his warfarin all the time, and apparently he wasn't feeling well. He had a sore bottom, real sore, couldn't sit on it, couldn't whatever. It was almost too hard for him to get out of bed. Then he did take a shower one day and fell right out of the shower, and that was it. He just boom, went right down. And they did not take him to the hospital because he refused. He just wanted to go in his own bed. So they did. The next day I had to take him because there was no way he couldn't even move without it hurting. Well, he ended up being an abscess on his bottom, and they had to put tubes in and stuff like that. Well, because of that, he got so weak in the legs and in the hips, and at that time his INR was really high. It shouldn't be over 3, and I think it was 12 or 14 or something like that. It was way high, and they thought maybe he may have had when he fell out of the shower, internal bleed. You know, with it being that high, you can bleed to death internally.
Oh, wow.
So they checked all that out, and he wasn't bleeding, nothing, even though his whole side of his face was purple from falling. But the more he spent in the hospital, the weaker he got, and they ended up sending him to a nursing home for rehab to get him back up on his feet. And if you remember that time where he actually did get up on his feet, and he had you guys over, and we even have a video of that.
That was an exciting moment.
Yeah. And he really thought that, but see, at this time, since being in the hospital, he developed a sore on his foot. So, bed sore from not the hospital, but the nursing home. In which I told him, I said, I noticed there's a little blister here on the heel, and it happened to have his foot cut off by that November of 2021. And yeah, that went quick. So from there on out, he's been a Hoyer ever since. When he was in the hospital for the amputation of his one below the knee, he developed another sore on the other foot. And we tried to save it by going to the wound clinic every week, trying to get it debrided, trying to work with it. Ended up having to be cut off as well. So it's been very, at first we did not have a van that carried a wheelchair, and we do now, but in the beginning everything had to be scheduled with a wheelchair van cab, and which was hard in itself. We couldn't go nowhere. I couldn't take him anywhere because I couldn't get him in the vehicle with no legs.
What kind of emotional toll has all of this taken on you?
On me?
On you?
I'm tired. Very sad for him. It's very hard to be on this side of the fence looking in and not being able to rescue who's ever on that other side of the fence that can't get out. You know what I mean? It's like he's trapped. There's nowhere. I was his legs, his arms, his whatever. I mean, now at this point, by this time, after in 2022, after having the second one amputated, he had less and less feeling in his fingers and coordination in his fingers with utensils and stuff. So we ended up, I have to cut up his food, so he pick it up with just a spoon, and even a salad, if you can cut it up small enough where just spoon it, that's what we did, or that's what we do, I should say. So how it affected me emotionally was not good. My heart hurt. And of course, it was hard. It was hard on me just doing all this stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure it's very
And we
physically
didn't. I had to
demanding.
quit my job to stay home and take care of him because we sure didn't have money to either him going in a nursing home or someone coming in. We just don't have the money for it. We were better off with me quitting my job and doing what we can on the income that he was bringing in and not having to spend it on someone taking care of Wally. So
Is there anything in your personal history that has prepared you for this? Did you come into this, sort of just completely inexperienced with this type of caregiving? Or do you point to things in the past? So I think of David, right? When he goes to fight Goliath, he had actually already been prepared in certain ways because he had killed a lion and a bear, while protecting his sheep. And so that sort of, got him ready for the bigger fight with the giant. Is there anything in your personal history that you would say has prepared you to do this type of thing for Walter?
well, my whole working career was in a nursing home.
Okay.
So just seeing the residents or the elderly that lived in a nursing home and learning how fragile they are and how not fragile they are and all that. I didn't work with them per se, but I did work with their meals and had to prepare their meals and talk with them how their meals are going and stuff. But when moving here, the first year, it was right. I got the job right when he ended up in the hospital having to have dialysis. And they were kind enough to push it back and me start when he got back. But anyway, I started at Alpine at an assistant living, and I told them I wasn't trained on CNA work or any of that, but I went to a class that was just, several hours on this and that and the other thing to pass, like passing meds. In 18 hours, I was legal to pass meds, all that kind of stuff. Only because it was an assisted living. It wasn't an actual nursing home setting. That's why they
Okay.
could do it that quick.
And this was back, you said, right when Walter
Yeah, 2016.
had started
the fall of-
dialysis.
Yep.
So the timing of that is interesting, isn't it? That God
Yeah.
was sort of giving you some of the basic tools that you were going to need.
Yep, and I
for
did.
what was
I
ahead.
did cares on these people. I cooked, which I already. That's what I used to do. Cooked and cleaned up the mess, and actually put them to bed and did their meds and bathed them. Cleaned their rooms. So we were everything. I mean, we didn't have a CNAs or kitchen workers or whatever. You were all of it. So for
So-
10 months,
So kind of what you're doing right now.
pretty much. yeah, exactly what I'm doing right now. But yeah, that was taking care of 11 people instead of one. So it was very taxing and very. That was hard, but it was harder to actually see a loved one go through that. I never thought we'd be at this point, and I don't think he did either. But
Yeah, a lot of
we
this was
are,
very
and-
unexpected.
Yeah.
So what's been the hardest part then of being a full-time caregiver? I know that the entire thing is very emotionally taxing and very difficult. But if you had to sort of pinpoint, okay, this has been the most difficult thing that I have encountered in this,
Oh boy,
what would you say that would be?
I never really thought of it that way or pinpointed anything that was worse than the other. I guess the hardest thing is just watching him not being able to do the things he used to do because he was such an independent person. And I had to actually do it for him.
Yeah.
And that's taking his pride away, everything that he's been so good at our whole marriage. He was never a complainer, never nothing. And now it's completely turned and he depends on me for everything. And I guess also the hardest part is thinking that what if I'm not here for him or can't be here for him? What's going to happen to him? Because his mental state, I don't know how well he would do if I wasn't around to be able to take care of him. So I think we become quite codependent on each other throughout this whole, what do you call it, ordeal.
Yeah.
So.
What are some of the ways that you have sensed God ministering to you as you have cared for your husband?
The biggest thing that I have, first off, I want to say that since all this happened, and which is a good thing, is that my faith in the Lord has grown tremendously. Which is weird. You wouldn't think that it would, with something bad happening in your life and you're actually having more faith in God than worldly things, you know. But I did have issues and problems as to why isn't he fixing? Why is he allowing him to go through this? I mean, okay, enough is enough. What do we do? You know, what are we being punished for? You know, and and of course I don't get an answer on that. Someday maybe I'll know. But the biggest thing is that he may not fix or take us out of what's going on, the problems that we're having, but he definitely gets us through. And that's one thing I bank on. Just get me through another day. Get Walter another day. Let's, you know, let's see what this week's going to be. Let's just get through another week. And, you know, it just happens. There's definitely rough times, and you just got to hurdle over it and continue going.
Have you sensed the Lord caring for you during this time?
I don't know. I'm sure he is. I don't have doubt that he's not, but I don't think I really sat and thought about it, to tell you the truth.
Sure.
Never. The only thing is that my faith in him has grown stronger.
You know, you talk about wanting to know, you know, are we being punished for something? And then there's just silence, and part of me just wants to say, well, maybe that is the answer. Like, well, Lord, what are we being punished for? Silence. Nothing.
Nothing.
Right? Nothing.
Exactly.
Right?
You're right. There, nothing.
So why do you persevere in this for so long? What are some of the things that keep you going?
Well, my love for Walter has never faltered from day one, from the day I met him. So, and I took a vow to, in sickness and in health, and the good times and bad, and, you know, just everything. I know if the roles were reversed, he'd be there for me, and there wouldn't be anything changed. It would just be roles being reversed. There was a lot of times in our marriage that I couldn't perform what a wife should perform, and he still stayed and loved me regardless. You know, so he did sacrifice himself and his life or whatever for me. And okay, right now there's a pause in my life. I'm taking care of him, so therefore, you know, I don't get out much. I don't even know where I'm going with this. What was the...
But why have you persevered so long in this?
Oh, yeah, I totally went off the
That's okay.
beaten path there.
There's no wrong
Well,
answer.
I have stayed in this because he is my husband, and I adore him and love him, and no matter what, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It's not my right to walk away from him. So.
I remember last year, I think I used you guys as a sermon illustration, because there's a theological term in the Old Testament. It's the word hesed, And in English, really the best way to bring it into English is something like loving loyalty. And it's the word that's used of God's loving loyalty towards his people. And when I think about that particular word, I think of you guys. I think of your relationship, and particularly the way that you have showed, such care and concern and commitment to Walter and all of the things that you've done with him, and how you really have stuck by him for better or for worse, in sickness and in health.
Yep.
And it is a beautiful picture of what God intended marriage to, just the commitment of marriage, what he intended it to be.
Yeah, and when you're married, you're united as one. So until you die, and then that ends. But whatever he goes through, I go through. Whatever I go through, he goes through, and that's how I think a marriage should be.
Absolutely.
We've never. I've never ever thought about ever leaving him, and he's always thought that in the back of his head, his mind, thinking she's not going to stay with me, or why would she, after I can't even walk anymore? Can't she, just throw me in a nursing home and go on with your life or whatever? And there's no way I could do that. There's no way I could live a life if I did something that way. There's no way. So what I'm doing right now is what I need to be doing. And that's where God has me, and
well, thank you for being such a wonderful example of what commitment in marriage and love, not just commitment, because I don't think you do it out of sheer duty. I think you do it out of it is commitment, but it comes from a place of love, genuine love, I can tell. And so I noticed that. I know the people around you noticed that. So thank you for being such an example of what
well, thank you for noticing that. I mean, I never really I never really thought of it that way until you brought it up that way. Because I just assumed that this is how a marriage should be, and I loved him from day one, from the time I met him. And even our age difference of being 19 years apart, and a lot of people thought, "Whoa, what are you doing? You must be rich or something." No, he ain't rich. Just that kind of thing. And I know there were times in our marriage that he probably thought, well, she's young enough, she can go find someone else. So I think he tried to tell himself that might happen. No, it's not going to happen.
It's okay. We can edit this part out. That likely will not show up on the recording because he's far enough away from the away from the mic that we're not going to pick up the snoring in the background.
I'm getting red.
Maybe we'll leave this in. This is actually good. This is good material. It's personable. It's funny. Yeah.
The husband is in the background snoring.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Oh no, he's a wonderful soul. He was wonderful. There's no way I'd leave him. So.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Laura. We appreciate your thoughts, and we will be back once again for additional thoughts and reflections on life and suffering with Walter and Laura Vondre. Thanks for joining us.